to help MSMEs to remain resilient towards recovery, speaking of COVID-19?
Thank you very much, Samuel, and my appreciation to the organizers, IDRC and EPRC, for this meeting, just one in a series of them since COVID came in. But you see, Samuel, when you talk about growth, and the private sector leads growth, when you talk about growth, you are talking about many aspects of growth, ranging from output to employment and many other factors. And the evidence is very clear. Research has been taken, and we have the evidence. And I'm happy about the very first presenter, really emphasizing the aspect of evidence. Let's listen to research, let's listen to evidence, let's listen to reason, and not sentiments. As I said, this is only one in a series of these such meetings. And I think we in the private sector are saying one thing. Can policy makers, people who are in policy formulation, wake up the challenge that COVID is bringing to us now? That is going to be very important, so that it's not rhetoric. When you talk about MSMEs, and someone, I think the very first speaker, mentioned the informal sector, 90%, 80 to 90% of these SMEs are in the informal setting. They don't know what to do. We don't know who they employ. We don't know what they are producing, where they are selling, where the markets are, and so on and so forth. And the challenge for MSMEs, indeed, if one could just put it in a nutshell, it's about liquidity, it's about skills, it's about finding markets. Finding markets means you must have the capacity to respond to the expectations of that market in terms of volumes, standards, etc., etc. Now, these are the challenges that we wake up to today in the time of COVID. The challenge that we have is that many businesses are beginning to shut down. And I think you alluded to that. 3.8 million jobs are on the line, 1.6 of them directly. This speaks to a policymaker. What is it that we must do to make sure that we save these enterprises? So we are talking about the survival of enterprises, and we are talking about resuscitation of the enterprises. We are talking about growth of these enterprises. We can't talk about growth until they are able to come afloat. Now, coming afloat means that we have that requisite stimulus package. Now, the requisite stimulus package, and that's, I'm very excited about my neighbor on the left here, the Uganda Development Bank. We were very excited through the budget. 1 trillion, yes, it's small money, but it's big, especially if it's focused on MSMEs. So the question that is continued to linger is whether this money is going to be focused on the micro, small, and medium enterprises, and not necessarily on the large enterprises. And what does it take for us to focus these resources on those little enterprises? What is the criteria? How prepared must they be? We are talking about an informal sector. Some of them are not registered. You cannot keep dishing money, and banks know that, to individuals that are not registered, don't have a business plan, don't have a viable proposal, and so on and so on. How do we prepare them? So business development support is critically important, especially for the young ones that are starting, that just started and then COVID came through and are near collapse. What is it that we must do? So training, capacity engagement, skills, and so on and so forth.
Gideon, I want to interrupt you before I forget this question. Again, Dr. Sawanya is sitting on your right. This is researchers meeting business people. What kind of research would you want as PSFU from her EPRC?
I think I would zero down on 3 things. What does the private sector want? The private sector wants markets. That is the first thing. Tell me where the market is, and I will work towards that market. If it's in agriculture, construction, whatever it is, housing, tell me where the market is. And that's why import substitution, BUBU, is very important. When we talk about buy Uganda, build Uganda, government is pointing to a market, is presenting themselves and saying, we are going to buy textile, we are going to buy footwear, we are going to buy your food, and so on and so forth. Now, the next question is, how do we prepare for this market that has been identified? So then we begin to work with the Bureau of Standards. Because there are other competitors that are coming into Uganda. Uganda is not, we cannot look away from everyone else. China is here, South Africa is here, Europe is here. The question is, how do we prepare ourselves to engage in the same market that these guys are coming to? The challenge we have today is that Chinese are coming to Uganda today and beating us out of the market in Kisoro. Out of the market, you know, in Kampala here, go to any supermarket here and see what we say. So the question is, how do we prepare these SMEs to come afore and get into a market and be able to compete with everyone else?
I gather you very well, and
so on and so forth.
And the takeaway from Dr. Sawanyana there is how?
So the how is building capacity, because you see, when you look at an MSME, there are internal challenges to the company or enterprise or association or whatever it is, and there are external challenges. Internal, pointing to things to do with, are you able to access credit? Are you prepared well enough? That is not external. That is internal to the firm. Build your capacity to write a bankable project. How do you skill your workers? The customer care you have. All these things are not external. They are internal to the firm, but they can bring down a firm.
Before time runs out on us, Gideon, I need to move to Minister of Finance because we need to hear from them, the guys who hold the money. Sorry for interrupting you there.